Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome to BulkConscious.
Nice. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on, dude. I think you and I have talked about doing something like this. We've talked about broadcasting and being more public with our experiences and our teachings, our understandings, even just the bulk of our conversations.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the show, BulkConscious. You are Russell Hill.
Russell Hill, yeah.
And I'm Philip
Russell
Clinton.
Charles Hill.
Your middle name is Charles?
Yeah. I used to not use it because I was ashamed that I was British. Like, I thought it wasn't cool. But now I went back to England and I was like, this is such an awesome place. The countryside of England where my family's from. I need to, use Russell Charles Hill because that's the full of who I am.
Sure.
And I'm proud to be, part British. Yeah.
Rightly so, you should be.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful country.
No, it's a wild synchronicity with your middle name being Charles. You've probably told me that before, but that's largely gone over my head. Have you heard the whole Stevie story with Charles?
What?
King Charles?
No.
Oh, man. When Stevie went to England for the first time, he walked into a metaphysical center. The woman that ran the metaphysical center looked at him and was like, you're King Charles. And he's like, what are you talking about? He came back to me with that story, and so I Googled, King Charles the First, what does he look like? And it looks exactly like Stevie.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
I never shared this with you?
I don't think I've heard of it.
Oh, man, I have to show you the picture. It wasn't until I looked up the paintings. It looks exactly like him. So, what's the name of the current king of England?
I don't even know. Charles? Interesting.
King Charles.
King Charles.
Right? Yeah, so the current monarch of England is Charles.
King Charles.
Yeah, I never made that connection with you. But no, I think rightly so. It's appropriate to carry the full name. I largely subscribe to the belief of carrying the gravity of your full name at birth, like whatever it says on your birth certificate. Whether you like it or not, there is something your soul agreed to, and there's a particular lesson and or power in your full name, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. So I applaud you on making moves in that direction.
Yeah, some kids, they have a new nickname every 2 weeks.
Kids will be kids. My favorite Chinese proverb is dogs bark, but the man carrying the cart keeps walking down the road.
Yeah.
So,
Your kids are lovely. I really enjoyed seeing them.
Oh, thanks, man. I've poured my heart into them, and it's absolutely everything to me. So, for the good and bad and the ugly, they're everything that I have to offer the world, and that means a lot to me. Thanks. Yeah. So I'm welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here. Would you like to enlighten the audience a little bit about who you are? You and I have known each other a very long time, and I think we've both contributed to each other's lives vastly and greatly. And I thought it would be a good idea to have you on and talk about I really haven't even thought it out. Talk about whatever you'd like to talk about, because to be honest with you, you have so much on the table that we could go in any direction, and it's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I could, if you're describing it, I could go in many directions.
Sure. Give just some brief introductory synopsis.
When it comes to career, I'm a meditation specialist. I work with people with autism for meditation. I have my first private client, my first kind of long-term private client, and I also have a job teaching meditation. And we do a lot of check-in. We were doing yoga, but I decided we're just gonna do like more Tai Chi, Qigong more. Actually, it's the reason is someone fell while doing yoga in my yoga class, and I was like, they hired me as a meditation teacher, and I gotta play it safe. It was actually this week, so I told my supervisor like, I don't have specific yoga teacher training to work with autism, and there's like physical things that come with it, with like balance and stuff, that a yoga teacher who doesn't have special needs training, it's just a different kind of thing, and I don't know how to work with it. But with the meditation and with the higher parts of yoga, like breathing and spirituality, I can teach them all that. And one thing that's really cool about my work is that they're really like give me a lot of room to get into like spiritual and mystical stuff, and people are like very grateful and they love it, especially the autistic people who come to my class, that they really are excited about it.
So you would call yourself currently a teacher?
I'm a teacher, yeah.
You make your living off of being a teacher.
I make my living off being a teacher, especially now that I have a private client.
You just found yourself here, or you really chose this path?
I've been wanting to teach meditation, even when I was applying to jobs 7 years ago. Like, even in college, like 10 years ago, I was like, I want to teach meditation. Yeah.
So I talk a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what your origins like, and how you found yourself where you are today. What were your dreams when you were young? What were just some of the basic struggles? How do you find yourself here today?
I think around 5, I started having nightmares and really wanting to beat the nightmares, to get into a better place, to face them.
Mm-hmm.
I was having a lot of sleep paralysis, and I think some scary out-of-body experiences as a child in my dreams.
It's funny, I don't recall you. I don't have that in my Rolodex. I actually don't recall you telling me that.
And yeah, so my dad was a yogi, and he was teaching me breathing techniques to get to sleep because I was so scared. I was having trouble falling asleep.
Your father's from an Indian.
He's Indian, but he's from the UK.
The Hindu
he was
heritage.
Adopted, so he was raised by Welsh farmers.
His blood is full India.
I think like at least half, but he has some European as well.
Fascinating.
And the town they raised him in, I stayed in my grandma's house for like, I don't know, maybe about a year of my life in different parts, not all at once.
Sure.
And it was like really gorgeous. But getting back to how it started is that I was using these techniques to kind of deal with insomnia.
Yeah.
I was doing meditation techniques and yoga.
Yeah.
To deal with insomnia. And then at 8, 2 things happened. We had my dad came in for a show and tell to my school, and he did a headstand. Then he got talked to by the principal, and he said, yoga is really helpful. You should look it up. I think it'd be good for your school.
So what? It triggered the faculty.
So they didn't want him doing headstands, giving kids ideas. But anyway, so they actually ended up listening to my dad and they looked it up, the benefits of yoga, and they hired a yoga teacher for school.
Where was this? Here in New York?
Yeah, in Upper West Side, Parkside School.
Wow.
And the kids were like in love with yoga class, so it became this cool thing that my dad was the yogi, and it was like yoga was like a cool thing in the school. Kids really loved it, so I got into yoga doing that. Meantime, I was listening, I think, to Hemi Sync and like Kelly Howell cassette tapes. My dad had a couple of cassette tapes.
What's that?
Cassettes.
Yeah, no, I know what cassette tapes are, but
And
what
like
is
for like synchronizing the brain with like music that you listen to and
it's like
sound,
binaural?
like binaural beats.
Uh,
Like and then also he had some tapes that were just guided meditation with like he sort of like the headphones would like um, help you out to like go into deeper meditation.
sure, sure.
And when I started listening to those tapes, I was actually able to enter the meditative state when I was 8 years old.
Mm.
And once I really went into deep, the first meditative state, I went really deep, and then I was like, I was like, wow, I'm in like a different dimension now. I'm not in nightmare zone anymore. Like,
Mm.
this is good. This is like a good place and a good frequency.
What were some of the hallmarks of those experiences that gave you the confidence to differentiate in the manner that you just did? Saying, "Oh, I'm not in nightmare," and cartoonishly, simplistically, one is negative and the other is positive. What was your experience to go, "Oh, this is no longer the nightmare"?
Do you want me to be fully honest?
Uh, to whatever degree you're
Yeah,
comfortable being
I
honest.
stopped having actual nightmares,
Sure.
or at least less often.
Yeah.
Much less often. I felt less anxious. My mind was quiet. I was calm. There's like a deep zen,
Mm.
and it was like it went from like a very scared, very fearful, very dark perception
Mm.
to like a very like the world is calming, the world is, like it was a shift in kind of just how I saw reality. It just felt less like fear and more like the ocean.
And moving forward from that realization of when you're like, oh, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, there is salvation. How much was this akin to like you finally putting your hands on the steering wheel of your life?
It very much felt that way. Like I had like I was no longer subject to these entities. Like I could make them go away.
You felt, you heard other voices, you felt.
Well, sometimes, yeah, I just felt like I had a tool that I could push back against.
It didn't, the nightmare zone, if I may, didn't feel natural per se?
It felt
Induced? Or?
natural. Like I think it was just I was a very psychic kid,
Mm.
and I think I went through a phase starting around 5 where became more negative. I actually remember up to 8 years old, I had my mom sleep in a chair in my room because I was so terrified to be alone.
Sure.
I was having sleep paralysis. I would have like out of body experiences where like I would fall asleep. I would be asleep and I would be in a nightmare. I would realize it and I would try to wake up and I would wake up in another nightmare dream.
Yeah.
And another, and it was like a battle to wake up.
Inescapable.
Sometimes with the sleep paralysis, like I was trying to actually fight actual paralysis. And then once I learned to go into to use meditation, I could change my frequency, and I wasn't even in the same realm. Now it would still happen sometimes, but it would be like once every a couple months rather than, than like constant.
But if it came up again, it wasn't an inescapable realm. You had a technique or methodology or a way out.
I always believed there were ways to fight it, and I learned more things over time. I mean, like one of the powerful things was Stephen's calling in the angels ritual, and like also the singing bowl for harmonizing sage.
Sure.
I learned Reiki. I built a lot of tools over the years.
So your father teaching you these things, how old are you? What is this?
Starting as early as I can remember, 5, 3.
Wow. So your father's teaching you yogic breathing techniques at 5.
Because I couldn't sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even because it's magical and amazing, but as a practicality.
It was like I always knew that there were people and things, and I always believed in wizards and mystical things, and I wanted to see the light side of it too, and I think meditation enabled me to see the lighter side as well. that it wasn't all scary.
So what would you say is the next step in your development?
Well, what I've been working on is like,
Well, to go from there to what, when you're 18? Is there...
oh, so then I started going to meditation classes and learning the yogic benefits of meditation at Jivamukti. Also at 8, I started martial arts with Hanchi.
In Manhattan, in Union
Manhattan.
Square? Yeah.
I went to Jivamukti in Union Square and Hanchi, starting at the YMCA, and then I moved to his main dojo.
Jivamukti was originally YMCA.
Really?
No, that's what I'm asking you.
No,
there was
two
something else at
separate.
the Y.
I'm mixing things up
Oh, okay.
with the non sequitur. Like, yeah. But so I studied with this guy Carlos. Ganesh Das was his other name, and he taught me how to like sit in silent meditation, and we did some guiding, and he would very much talk about, we do a shavasana, but it was a lot about like connecting to God and letting God fill us with light.
That's wonderful.
And it was just very beautiful. So we would meditate sitting down for maybe an hour, and then.
How old are you here?
What?
How old are you here?
I started that at 14, but I was also going to events at Jivamukti before that. Doing like just parties and stuff to talk to people who I could talk about, Jedi and mystic things, wizards, dragons, the higher ETs, higher guys, and they'd understand. And I remember my first day at Jivamukti was a party, and Ram Dass showed up.
Get out of here.
And I talked to Ram Dass about...
No way.
About
you met Ram Dass?
Yeah, I talked to him about Star Wars and Jedi, and we had a conversation.
No way, dude.
You could tell I was obsessed with Star Wars. But, like, he would just kind of entertain me, I think.
Dude. Ram Dass is the shit. Ram Dass is so cool. If you don't know, you gotta... Have you ever read his most famous work, Be Here Now?
Some of it.
It's one of my Bibles. It's one of my Bible. I could talk about that all night, but forever, for all, the pros and cons, Ram Dass is amazing for that work. You're very fortunate to have met, have been in his company and met somebody like him. Few people can measure up to the quality of the work that he did and the fruit that it bore, I would argue. So, no, dude, you never told me that. That's cool shit.
So that was really cool. I didn't really know who he was. He was just some guy named Ram Dass. I was like, what's your real name? And I didn't ask him that. That's what I thought.
Nah, I can't even remember his real name.
Why is this white guy calling himself Ram Dass? Well, he's cool.
No, for the best reason.
He looks like a cool guy. I'll talk to him about Jedi and flying and those sorts of things I talked about when I was younger, mainly.
He's cool.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What has it been like for you to delineate the ease or the struggle with the delineation between this like imaginative internal fantasy world slash intuitive, sensitive, perceptive body and the real world in this time period that we're focused on and we're talking about? You bring up these subjects, ET contact, with such confidence, etc. And you're like, I think Ram Dass was just like entertaining me. You say with such confidence that it's manifested and real now. What was it like for, and you describe it was, you were comfortable enough to share that with him. Describe a little bit of that process of your perception of that world and your ability to ground it in a coherent manner in your life.
That's some thinking.
Like, because you're telling me at 5 you're perceiving this, and it
at 5, like, I would see like faces and things. Maybe some of it was delusional or hallucinatory.
Sure.
It might have just been, but at the same time, it came with a drive to really find my light. And, there's things that I saw that other people also saw at the same time.
Sure.
And it's like, oh, I see that. And I was like, you sure? What color is it? And we, tested it out.
You're sharing the same internal vision. You're both seeing the same thing and testing it. What color is it? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Yeah.
I think, with even at Steven, how we all, saw the same thing.
Sure.
And sometimes we, tested it and, filmed it and just to see.
Poke and prod, yeah.
Yeah, and then, even when I was in, a very good place mentally, I had seen things, as an adult, I saw, my friend was like, holy shit, there's a red orb outside your window. We were outside looking outside on the block, and I was like, oh wow, I see it too. It looked like a lifelike orb, so that was cool. But, maybe, I'm just, the shaman kid that's, more geared towards, wizardry and, magic and fantasy. And that even if it's not true, at least that's what I'm supposed to do to keep the human race fulfilled and in creativity and beauty. If it is just, me being delusional,
How were you able to make that delineation for yourself in your youth and not give up on it? I think a lot of people naturally people are born with this perception. Maybe not everyone, but largely this is my belief, and we write it off in various ways, through parents, through culture, through, right? And if any of that gravity was extraordinary, it was upon you. And yet somehow you kept that flame alive. If anything, it was even harder on you. And somehow you kept that flame alive, and you've actually done something with it. You've tested it repeatedly, and you consistently conclude it's of value to you.
And especially when I was a kid, a lot of people were very afraid of it.
Yeah.
And they wanted it just off.
They wanted nothing to do with it. Yeah.
No, teachers and people don't even talk about anything spiritual in school at all.
Well, I don't know what to do with this.
They would be upset. Even kids would get really angry if I mentioned any sort of spirituality, because they were just they thought it was something bad, something evil or something.
The way I would describe it, it's high voltage, and people can perceive the high voltage, and it's intimidating.
Yeah.
Rather than, a bed of flowers, which is familiar and comfortable.
Yeah.
And pleasing.
So yeah, I have a really great yoga teacher who I really like now, and I'm learning a lot of beautiful things too.
So at what age did you start martial arts? And
I started Taekwondo at 5.
How did you, wow,
but they were it was just very hard for me, because it was something about it was extraordinarily hard for me.
Mm.
And then I quit I think I forget if my mom quit with me or I quit. But when I was 8, I got locked in a closet and beat up. Because some people were being really awful to this girl. And I asked my friends what's the worst word to call someone. And I called them that, and then they beat me up and put me in a closet. They were getting physical with this girl against her will, so I was really upset.
Uh-huh.
I thought I could fight off 3 guys. I don't know. I couldn't, but then I was like, Mom, I got locked in a closet, and I was like, Mom, I need to go back to martial arts. And she was like, I don't know, martial arts can be violent, I don't want to teach you violence or something. But then, I did some research, and I was like, No, like martial arts doesn't lead to bad outcomes. Like it helps people be better people, and it's not about violence. It's about self defense and growth.
That's amazing. So it came from you being like, I tasted this, and
I need to know how to defend myself.
that's amazing.
And I think I came for the self defense, and I stayed for more than just the self defense. I have found community. I found discipline. I found purpose through the martial arts.
So what happened after that? What school did you find yourselves under?
I studied under Sebukai's classes at the YMCA in the Upper West Side.
Um, what? When did you finally find yourself under the umbrella you find yourself now?
You mean so I studied with Hanshi first at the YMCA and then at his dojo in Midtown.
Oh, so he was coming to the Y and
Teaching martial arts, which was closer.
wow.
But actually, once my mom realized once I told her, she actually found Hanshi. She did a lot of research to put me in a really good school.
Wow.
She paid for it. Like my dad, I'm sure my dad also helped.
Sure.
And she would take me far to go to martial arts, and all the way to Midtown East. And Hanshi was part of a lineage because his teacher, he was the top student of someone who we would call Soke.
So let's tell the audience what is this? What
This
martial
is
art is
an
this?
ancient samurai system that predates thousands of years back, and it is called our style of it is called Kikuchi Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, and it was started by judo expert, a judo master from Japan, from the I forget the name, Kikuchi-kan University, and he knew Oyama, who was probably one of the most baddest people in karate ever, and they were friends. And he studied in the top judo school university in Japan, and he was a high rank black belt in karate, jiu-jitsu, aikido, and judo.
This is the 1800s, 1900s.
Well, Soke just retired, so
Oh,
it was 1900s.
This is the last century.
Yeah.
So this is a form of Japanese jiu-jitsu?
A form of Japanese jiu-jitsu, but I also do aikido and karate, and I did some judo.
All of that is more recent, though.
I started aikido about 15 years ago, and karate about 15 years ago.
And
But my
jiu-jitsu
focus
is how long?
I was putting much more energy in jiu-jitsu.
And just to encapsulate, where are you with that today?
I'm a 3rd degree black belt.
And in a nutshell, what did that take and how long did that take?
It took me maybe, I think about 20 years to get my 3rd degree black belt before my test.
And how legitimate would you say is your black belt?
It's a legitimate school, a very legitimate school, and one where you have to go through heavy hoops and heavy training and heavy tasks to get your black belt. It's not easy, and it took me 10 years to get my 1st degree.
I have to tell you, and this only came in the later part of our relationship, one of my favorite things about you was the moment that I perceived the gravity of what that means. I don't know if you remember, but we were outside on 79th, and Peter casually challenged you to spar, and we were in the middle of a friendly conversation and caught you off guard. And as soon as you saw he got the better of you, you switched gears, and you were so lightning fast. I was like, oh my God, you've never showed this off. You've talked about it relentlessly, but I've never seen it. It was only in that moment when you sparred on the street casually, just for a moment, did I go, wow, you really are. And I think at that time you were a 2nd degree. I go, wow, you really are a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and you have lethal authority at any moment. It's funny, and all I've known you. God, how old was I? I've known you for 13, 14 years now, and this was only in the last 4 years that I perceive. I've never seen you fight. I've never seen you at the gym or at the school. I've never seen competition or, these were all just stories that you had. It was only in that moment when I saw you spar did I really perceive for a moment your power.
Yeah, and it's increased a lot since then. I've been studying very seriously.
Yeah, that's when you were second degree, and that was 4 years ago, and
Yeah.
you've only become more serious about it.
Yeah, I take it very seriously. It's a lot of my time, maybe like taking like 8 hours, 10 hours a week towards it.
So let's move a little bit faster. So how old are you when you find your
Auntie?
teacher? Yeah.
8, and I'm 33.
And how long were you at the Y before you went to the school?
A year.
So it would at 9 years old you're at the school.
And then Hanshi retired at maybe when I was 22.
And
Then I went to headquarters.
so how many years have you been at the same school?
In this system, I've been for 8. I think my yellow belt certificate was when I was 8. So a little over 8, and then I'm 33, so that's 2, almost 25 years.
It's amazing. And to encapsulate this, what does all of that mean to you?
Oh, I was just so always looking at these higher black belts and how incredible when I was ranking up. We would go to the competition and see the black belts. I would look at some of these guys and just like they were like extraordinary. They were incredible. Like the things they were doing, it was just incredible. Like the craziest things. We do something called techniques where you pair up with people. So and do like a show, and I would do cool things, but the black belts at headquarters were like one guy got his elbow stuck in the wall, and like he pulled it out and the wall like ripped, he broke the wall and he pulled it out like.
So you're as a kid, you're like that.
It was like Bruce Lee. Not Bruce Lee, but like
Yeah, I get it.
it was like kung fu movie stuff.
Yeah.
It was like really like beautiful and like hardcore.
So like from backtracking a little bit, the nightmares and whatever other problems you were suffering in your youth, how did this help in your early struggles?
Well, I remember when I was 11, I've been studying martial arts for a couple of years. No, it was like 10. Yeah, I think I was either 10 or 11. And I got some kids teamed on me and locked me in a closet again. And I remember kicking the door down. And
Wow.
it scared them. I was like, wow, I'm getting some power. And I was noticing that like the bullies like in school who were picking on the autistic kid, in mainstream camps and mainstream schools, like I was getting tougher and tougher. And I was seeing my strength and tuning into my inner power. So that was cool. But also like the grace where it's like you go from belt to belt. And like you have to earn each belt and you need to know certain things, and that kept me going, but also like being a part of a community, a brotherhood. And also as I started to get to the point where the younger belts would look up to me and I would be a senior student, which is what I still am. I'm not a sensei yet, but I'm a senior student. That people look to me and they look up to me. And especially as a kid, going through something where like a lot of people are really afraid of you in school, and like people are like they don't see your light, and a lot of the teachers didn't think I could do much, and they were very scared of me and very restricted of me, and it was almost like they didn't believe I could do much. And for me to see people actually looking up to me, like in high school, seeing me getting really close to black belts. Like, I'm a brown belt now, like, that gave me some meaning. I got my black belt right after I graduated high school, actually. Right before my 18th birthday.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. And in the beginning of our relationship, as easy as it was for me to not give you space and respect, or make this time and space to understand and respect you, when you told me, yeah, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, I'm like, what? That with whatever else, comes out of you, if that's true, there must be something really worthwhile, redeemable, significant. You just hearing that, I know that you weren't lying. I knew you weren't making it up. I know you can't just buy that, and it doesn't come easily. You earn that, and you must have, you must be worthwhile and have something extremely redeemable about you. And it's absolutely true. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's like something I can be proud of when I don't have much to be proud of yet. I mean, I even remember as a kid, like, not even getting, like, the lowest level of ribbons in track. Not making the junior varsity basketball team. Like, and then I hear something that I'm good at, and, like, it's actually inspiring people, you know?
So, can you go a little bit into why people might have been uncomfortable and why there might have been a struggle for you? And, it's exceptional that somebody becomes a black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's exceptional if somebody becomes second degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. Third degree, you are the first person I've ever met in the flesh in my life that's third degree. I've met other second degree before. I've never met a third degree. I can imagine some people wondering if they just let you walk through the door and you got an honorary third degree or black belt, versus you actually earned that.
I definitely worked for it. Especially in Hanshi's school, he trained me as hard as everyone else. I think the Soke and people at headquarters were a little more cautious because I have asthma. And I have asthma attacks, which I think scares them a little. And also because I for a long time I had terrible cramps, like terrible cramping that would just seize up, and I think they definitely do everything everyone else does at the dojo. I mean, I guess I can disclose that I'm on the spectrum. I think like loud, I can push through it more than most, but like overwhelming environments, like loud, crowded environments, can get hard for me.
Sure.
But I think I've definitely transcended a lot of it, especially a lot of the social stuff that used to really struggle. One recent thing is balance. Like I couldn't really balance well. And now I can balance better than the average person. But balance issues used to be part of my disability. I used to have issues with writing. I can write now, but I definitely prefer to type. In fact, I think I had issues with writing, and in college, I really learned to write very well.
How early were you diagnosed or identified for being on the spectrum?
I was very early, maybe five, I think.
And um, how much of a difference do you feel like all of this unique early training made in your ability to...
I think it changed the outcome of my life. I think I would have been a different person. I don't even know. Almost don't want to think about it. It might have been so dark.
If it's too uncomfortable, we don't have to go there. But but for the audience, for people that don't have the like your father, remember what you said. My father was born Indian, so I was able to be introduced to yogic breathing techniques at 5 to give me introductions to regulating my frequency and vibration.
I think it was a much better outcome of my life, and just the tools, learning to calm your mind, learning emotional regulation, ways to emotionally regulate, having the discipline. I mean, I think I might have been okay without it, but it sure gave me a much better life.
Well, talking to yourself in an alternate universe where you never met your teacher who led you into jujitsu and this level of mastery, to your father who didn't introduce you to these, even if he didn't understand that you would be a meditation teacher and a master of meditation and altered states.
I think I would have found other people, but I also think if I didn't find it, I think I would probably just be making peace with being in a group home.
What would you talk to yourself in an alternate universe that didn't have those luxuries in all the ways that you could imagine?
I'd probably become a sensei and help him realize these things that I learned. I'd teach him.
What would you say?
I would show him how to meditate.
Like your personal problems gone from all those early years, gone unresolved, unrecognized, unmature.
I'd have to train him.
In what way? What would you say? What would be the hand?
I would teach him pranayama. I would teach him meditation. I would teach him martial arts. I would stop time and just spend a couple of years teaching him the tools.
So what I'm trying to do in this show is introduce everybody into this concept of BulkConscious, which is the alternative to quantum mechanics. My idea is that we're all dissecting and separating every little thing. We're quantifying to try and understand reality. Quantum mechanics. What's the opposite of quantum mechanics? Is bulk consciousness. Quantum is small, bulk is large, mechanics is cold and mechanical and alien, and conscious has life and intention and awareness. So in what way does this understand? Let me put it this way. In those, when you were learning those breathing techniques and you were putting to bed those nightmares, what it was it in what way did seeing things in a larger scale and perception aid in the control of those nightmares? Was it because...
I think the meditation tapes really helped. And I'm a meditation specialist. I love people moving on to silent meditation, just listening to those guided meditations really transform things.
Absolutely. When I was 19, I met a Peruvian shaman. I studied with him for a year. There's 21 years ago, and one of the first times I was alone with him, I asked him, "What meditations do you recommend?" He said, "I'll only recommend silent meditations. It's only in silent meditations when you shut up, when everything inside is still and not producing sound, vibration, movement, activity, can you start to perceive and file everything around you accordingly. If you're talking while everything else is talking simultaneously, it just becomes this cacophony of noise and you have a hard time differentiating."
Mm-hmm.
So in what way did meditation help you differentiate between the vibrations and frequencies?
Mm.
And in what way does it do it now? In this moment
now?
Yeah, like how? But
I
explain
think
to the audience how you are able to differentiate from a positive vibration to a negative vibration.
I just feel it in my gut. I feel it in my body.
And what's the difference?
Negative feels tense. My body kind of closes up
Constricts. Yeah.
naturally. Like I feel like energy telling me move away from it, kind of like pushing me away from it.
Your instincts are
Yeah,
pushing you away.
Push me away from it. It's like whereas positive, I feel open. Like I think I want to like be relaxed, like open, that sort of thing.
So, like the idea of bulk consciousness is not necessarily you lose your identity, but that you shift in your reference to your reference to identity shifts to larger states. And in my personal experience, when I'm able to shift out of fear, it's because I'm in fear of separation in some shape or form. Do you feel like your nightmares were a reflection of some fear of separation, and through breathing techniques you're able to absorb and perceive the oneness of yourself and things?
I think it was definitely a lot of fear that I was having trouble letting go of,
Mm.
and the meditations helped me to relax and move into a more relaxed parasympathetic nervous system state where I was able to let go of fear, and letting go of that fear and slowing my mind and going into peace opened me to other frequencies. And it felt very beautiful and very profound going through that door.
So how old were you when we met?
20.
19, 20?
19, 20.
I thought you were a teenager when we first met. I think you were still 19.
19, maybe 19 or 20.
Yeah. How old are you now?
33?
So we've known each other 13, 14 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, I really value my connection with you as much as you do. From the bottom of my heart, you've contributed to my growth and well-being tremendously. If I'm going to be honest, when we first met in the beginning for a number of years, it felt like, from experientially, there was a lot of baby sitting on my side. For a plethora of reasons, but in all these years, you're one of the few people that I can sit with and genuinely have the experience of feeling an equal with. Nobody is at the same level of development. We're all, gods, goddesses of our own particularities. And so that's one of the joys of life. It's like, oh, you're at your feet in this, let me help you in that. Oh, I know this and you don't have that, let me help you with that, So you fill a role in the collective, I fill a role in the collective. I don't know, what was it like for you coming from that and then meeting Stevie and me in the community, and how did that
I felt really good.
change your life?
Oh, that was very powerful. I mean, first I met Moira, who was really cool.
Through Jivamukti?
Through Jiva Mukti, and we were hanging out and spending time together, and she was really cool. And then through Moira, I met Olga, and I was like really happy to meet Olga. She was like, she really made me happy and like brought joy to me. And she was talking about I told her the Jedi stuff, and she's like, "Oh, we might be starseeds."
So what is the Jedi stuff? Just very simply, what does that mean to you?
I don't know. I kind of, as a kid, felt the need to be a Jedi when I saw the films. And I felt like the spirituality in Star Wars with the Force and the interconnectedness of all things, it really drew to me, and I really kind of like to imagine Yoda talking to me and giving me advice. And I would kind of fantasize about being this disciple of Yoda. And I had a planet that I would go to where I had like a kingdom in my fantasies, and I would like create this whole story about me and Yoda liberating the galaxy, which was really cool. And then when I was manic, I saw these fleets of ships in Lyndhurst, I think it was, and my friend was there, and he just ran into me, and he's like, "Oh, you see those ships too?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I see them. I see all of them. Why aren't people looking up? Why aren't people noticing?" People weren't even caring to look up. They're just so caught up in their own thing. And we just saw these fleets, and I was like, "This is my Jedi Brotherhood, like, showing up to show me they're there, So that was, that was really meaningful and beautiful, connecting also to all the ships we saw with Steven and the community of people who, believe in stuff like that, whether it's, the gods and goddesses or dragons or the Phoenix energy or bird tribe.
Well,
it was like I found my crew in a way.
Well, I think my favorite thing about that, and that's why I've always felt like family with you, is the synchronicities I experience in our, just like what you described, in our perceptions of things. And that's really like the make and break for me. I'll perceive things in my inner vision in an altered state. And it's when, you're confirming and completely synchronizing. After all these years, how many times have we had this conversation where I'm like, wow, you're speaking to everything that I'm perceiving. There's a shared vision, a synchronization, and a unification that's experienced between us. We are confirming between each other that we're not crazy, we're not hallucinating, and we're not just imagining. We might be clothing our imagination immaturely, but it doesn't undermine the fundamentality of our perception.
I definitely don't think it's what the DSM would say, the psychiatry manual for the diagnosis. Like, I don't think like I don't think I'm a danger to others. Like,
no, I don't.
Or myself.
I agree.
Or like,
I've known you long enough.
I don't think this believing in UFOs, spaceships mean I'm like borderline or something. Like,
look, I'll say this:
I think it's like almost even if it's not real, it's healthy for me. It gives me meaning. It helps me connect to the world in a more profound way.
I would argue because it gives you this sense of sanity and resonance,
sanity.
it is true.
Yeah.
And you're like, from my youth, I resonated with this idea, Jedi, resonated with this idea archetype, and I pursued it. And a lot of the status quo is apprehensive to follow me down that road.
Yeah.
But I stuck to it, and to this moment, it's not without merit. I still see tremendous. I see value and reality behind it. It's not just limited to the imaginative.
It hasn't hurt me in any way.
Yeah.
It's only helped me.
Yeah.
And it's giving me insights, like when I had when I meditated for 12 hours at night, I saw like a master, and like that these experiences are helping me. They're not hurting me.
And the information that comes through in these experiences, the lessons, the teachings, they hold true or they fall on their face, and eventually somebody comes and tells you, Russell, that doesn't make sense and it's BS, or something otherwise.
I think not only that, I think it makes me more sane.
It's profound. In other words, let me. I'm trying to make this delineation, and for you, if you have this for yourself, because you keep saying, even if it's made up, it's true for you.
It's
Are
true
you
for me.
you're not blind? You're not deaf. You're not you're not psychotic. You have eyes. You have ears. And you're more sensitive probably than the most, and you have worked hard at attenuating
Yeah, definitely.
your senses.
I've definitely opened the Kundalini and
You see the difference
the
how
yoga.
a lot of people that might be on the spectrum and medicated and put through the meat grinder of normal Western medication and not have had any alternative thought and practice might be painted into a corner of going, all of my perceptions are strictly hallucinatory.
like it's just so unhealthy to think they're like, I'm trying to find the words. They're this like disturbed thing.
This is what I want to target.
And then the psychiatrists say this is a disturbed thing, and then your spirituality, your imagination, your creativity is disturbed, and you're running from it. But that almost creates more pain.
And insecurity. Yeah.
More pain and actually leads to worse mental health. Whereas if you just say like, this is my spirituality, this is my perception, I don't have to convince anyone else of it, but this is just how I operate with the world, and I don't want to hurt anyone, and I don't want to hurt myself. So this is who I am, and this is what I believe, and it's not violent, it's about peace and love, and then people start to open up, but the autistic people might not even be able to perceive it that way, or speak it that way. They might not be able to have the words. In fact, a lot of kids growing up, they can't say that, they can't speak with the system.
There's no stage built for them, and there's no avenue of permission to express something like that.
But a lot of my autistic friends have similar kinds of things.
So this is how I'm encapsulating it. It's a razor thin line between, and this is what Pisces, Neptune, psychic perception, all these archetypal themes teach us. It's a razor thin line between accurate psychic perception and complete hallucination, delusion. Where are you comfortable delineating between those two for yourself? And I'm not going to hold it to you. You don't do a perfect job. Even I make those same mistakes. But for myself, I have enough fruit from that labor to go, I'm not crazy. I'm not blind and deaf. My perceptions do prove fruitful and accurate. I know I don't need them to tell me. I know for myself. I can see this is.
It's actually really funny. because there was a person I went to his conference called the Hearing Voices Conference, and he was saying that the research showed that most people have heard a voice in their life at some point, and that some people who hear voices, identify with it being schizophrenia, and usually that means that it's not healthy. But he had schizophrenia, and he ended up learning to work with his voices to overcome. And he wrote a book on talking with your voices to help overcome techniques for a schizophrenic person who's not functioning in society. And he says also, a lot of people hear voices, and they don't identify with schizophrenia. A lot of people hear voices, and it's helpful for them. And I told I had a bad psychiatrist once. I switched psychiatrists. I have a great one now. I told him that, and he gave me more diagnoses that my psychiatrist now just crossed off.
Hence the idea of second opinion, third opinion, fourth opinion, because each doctor is limited to whatever experience and education that they have.
But if you're hearing voices and the voices are healthy or they're helping you, a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists will say my doctor that that it has to be paranoid, harmful.
How about
that's
this?
Kind of the idea.
Just even the average viewer might hear this conversation and go, how do I delineate, how do I differentiate, tell the difference between my voice, the voice of the highest frequency imaginable, God, and the lowest frequency imaginable, the devil, right? Therefore, with the stage that we're setting, anything might be possible. It might be me, it might be God, and it might be the devil. Clearly, there's an infinite spectrum between these three things, but
my rabbi actually had
how do we delineate?
That, and he taught me.
How do we tell the difference?
The what is it called? The evil influence is judgmental. It's harsh.
Yes.
If you're hearing inner voices that are judgmental and harsh, that are beating you up inside, being really hard on you, that's a sign that it's the evil influence, and that could just be the evil influence within you. It doesn't have to be the devil.
How do you?
But if the voices are kind and loving and compassionate, that is the God speaking to you, the God within you.
How do you handle giving yourself the authority to make that delineation, right? Because normal
there's a warm
reality tells you everything that begins and ends here. So at first off, you have individuals trying to tell you this is not real, this is hallucinatory, and all that begins and ends is your inner voice. All these other things are BS.
Well, from a psychology perspective, a DSM perspective, I'll say from psychology, and then I'll say from my perspective, then I'll say from spiritual. So from a psychology perspective, schizophrenic voices tend to be very harsh and mean and paranoid. It's these voices are just putting you down.
Divisive, dare I say?
Yeah, they're just putting you down. They're they showed us a video in psychology class at college. I'm a psych major of a visual representation of schizophrenia. Just all these harshness. Whereas, if your voices they're neutral, or maybe they're mixed, or maybe they're really kind and really helpful, like when I was hearing Yoda, it was very insightful and kind, and I felt good inside. My rabbi says that's the good, that's the angel, that's God whispering in your ear.
Sure.
But when we're saying, I don't want to say the devil, because that's scary, and that's not going to encourage new meditators.
But it is important to, it's like telling somebody they can walk the streets of
So
the
I'll
worst
say-
neighborhood in New
I'll
York
say- I'll-
City without.
I'll say helpful presence versus unhelpful presence.
Sure.
Helpful voices are encouraging you.
Yeah.
They're kind, they're supportive. Maybe they're constructive. Maybe it's like they could be tough love, but they're not putting you down.
Maybe that's easy for you to delineate. What to the person who's.
Well, you can ask yourself, is this
You need a
Is
moral
this-
compass.
is this thought or is this feeling coming from a place of harshness or self-compassion? Because if the voice is like putting me down, it's not a helpful voice. I mean, if you want to get into the spirituality that we've engaged in, sometimes like entities and stuff,
Sure.
it might be like a higher being might be loving and constructive, and maybe constructive criticism or some tough love, but overall it's like encouraging and kind and fatherly.
It's taking you somewhere.
Whereas a
good and
lower
uplifting.
entity would be putting you down more. Also, I think that good people like encourage people to like they won't encourage you to do something that's isolating you. I was working with people I needed to go to Michael Graham actually for some exorcism clearing work because I was doing work on what is it called? I was doing work on people dealing with dark magic. And one thing I learned is that like
That is sticky as fuck.
yeah, what I learned was I was trying to help them clear stuff. But what I learned was what did I learn? I learned that the bad voices try to make you isolated. The negative voices, the negative inner voices, whether you hear them or they're just thoughts, they want to isolate you from your family. You know, people will say, "Oh, screw your boyfriend. You'll get a better boyfriend," you know, or like they'll try to isolate you from your job. They'll always encourage you for leaving a job, even if it's a good job for you. They try to-
Abandonment in general.
it's an isolation, and
Yes.
we saw that with COVID, this attitude of isolation,
Yes.
and it's like people, the dark side really wants you to isolate, the light side really wants you to have purpose and community and family.
Unify.
Wants to unify, and also it's like, you can be supportive, but if you know. I don't like it when people say, "Oh, get this new, better job. You shouldn't be working there." Like, "Oh, you're only working part-time," like that kind of thing, like to bring you away from stuff that gives you, from jobs, from family, that like the demons will say, "Oh, you don't need your job. Oh, you don't need, screw them." But the light voices will try to keep you connected and part of community. Now, maybe the light voice will tell you, to leave a job. But I think in most cases, like family's rough. We all have issues with our family, but they're your family. Like we got to be, and your friends too. Isolating from your friends, your family, that's one thing the dark side really wants to do. It wants to isolate you, and the light side really wants us to have community and connect.
I really believe fundamentally the universe and the message of the universe is free will is king.
Yeah.
Free will is king. I don't believe anybody is forced to be here. I don't believe you're forced to be here. I'm forced to be here. We're here of
If
our.
we want to.
Yeah, it's our choice.
Yeah.
We chose, dare I say, damn near everything. So like, let me just be bare bones. I'm really apprehensive that people will interpret my message and my thing as an advocation for communism. It's really about a balance between individuality and collectivism. It's about seeing your family and what you came here with as a blessing and your own wise choosing rather than some punishment or some, you know.
I mean, I think I lucked out. Like,
Dude, there's the grass. Let me put it this way: the grass is always greener and always browner. You can look at one side and go, "Oh man, that's more idealistic," and then you just look at your next neighbor and you're like, "Fuck, thank God."
I want to trade any family
Thank God.
for my family.
Thank God I don't have that. No, this is what I'm saying. Because free will is king. We all make our choices. I believe we choose our family. Because of that choice that we make, whether we're aware of it or not, I put it this way: your life is whatever you want. Free will, you get to choose whatever you want. Family is the one thing where God says you have to.
Yeah.
You have to, whether you like it or not. It doesn't matter how bad or ugly it is. You will be unable to separate yourself from that 50% of that entity.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll also say that it doesn't take someone who's highly psychic or very highly intuitive to know the difference between a negative or a positive vibration.
Right.
Because my rabbi has a simple method you can use where you just ask, is this a helpful voice? Is this voice judgmental? Is it kind? You know, like what you can also kind of examine how you feel. Does it make you feel open and good inside? Does it make you close energetically? Like almost like, what is my body telling me? Do I have a repulsion? Like those things can tell you information even if you haven't had a Kundalini awakening that opens your third eye.
So I'll just say this. I think almost everybody, more or less, throughout human history has been under attack.
Yeah.
And if anything, it's only gotten worse, especially in our lifetime. If we can imagine 20 years ago to today, it's only gotten worse. And being able to tell the difference between these two things is day and night. And what I would say, I can imagine some people in the audience, like you're saying the measurement is what is unity and love and healthy and feels good. There are a lot of people that don't have that ruler. They don't have that tool to be able to measure. They, have had a traumatic life as long as they can remember. And so, the way I would flesh it out is the way I usually explain it to people is if you could imagine something like this idea of the heart of God, quote unquote, the heart of God. What would it look like, right? What would it be like? So imagine the heart of God was a crystal and it was actually a centralized focal point in space and time. There was somewhere in the universe you could go to and say, this is the heart of God, right? The heart of God would be unconditional. The heart of God would never say no to you. Why? Because it's the heart of God. If such a thing existed, in what ways do you feel separate from that? And if you feel separate, if we can say for certainty something like this exists, and if you feel separate from something like that, in what way is that thing saying no to you?
And for the people that just can't use that tool, they're not there yet. Maybe they're going through a lot of trauma and they're having trouble. I would recommend learning to meditate, even if it just means listening to a 5-minute audio meditation on their headphones on YouTube or YouTube Music, like or somewhere where it's free. Like just getting a 5-minute meditation guided is a great start, and you could build from there. And a lot of people have a lot of issues. Like I teach meditation. I love meditation. I think it's a powerful tool. It's really shifted my life. I'd say that to start by slowly getting yourself into very easy meditations. And that's what I do with people. I guide people. I have music. I have singing bowls. My private, we do full silent. But we also do the singing bowls and the music. And sometimes the start is just, just start by the singing bowls get you in it too.
Yeah.
Those are powerful tools because maybe you'll have trouble meditating, but then I start playing a singing bowl and I'm moving it around.
So what's the difference from this moment to that meditative moment? Like people may not understand what the difference is. Oh, I'm not talking, therefore I'm silent. But there's a qualitative experience and state in what we're describing as silent meditation to just normal waking consciousness. It's a type of stillness. The way I invite people and direct them is relaxation. It's the epitome of relaxation. If you imagine a bathtub with candles and your favorite music, it's just you're most comfortable as you can possibly conceive. You're not worrying about the moment. You're not worrying about tomorrow. You're not crying about yesterday. You're just enjoying the present moment.
Yeah, I think that's very powerful. I was also thinking that for meditation, it's okay to have thoughts while we're meditating, and it's okay to just sit down and set the time and concentrate and watch the thoughts without ever fully achieving a meditative state. It took me 3 years before I went into a deep meditative state while meditating.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people who start meditating, they'll start out and they're just sitting there and they're like, have all these thoughts, they're super anxious. They're not really able to slow their mind much. But even that is an attainment.
Yes.
And then
shifting your awareness to that problem solving.
And you're bringing in the singing bowl, which is balancing the brain.
A distraction to the monkey mind.
Hemispheres. And then one day, you lead a guided meditation. They're like, oh, I got into meditation. Maybe a year or two later. But it's so powerful. So I just think it's one of the most powerful tools if you really understand meditation. And I do see myself as a meditation instructor, but my title is actually meditation specialist. And I want to be not just someone who leads meditations, but someone who understands meditation and how to make it accessible to everyone, so that even people who say I can't meditate, I can say, hey, let's give me a few sessions. Let's see if you can one-on-one. Let's see if we can get you to meditation.
I'll say this. For me, exactly the same. It all started with meditation. My ability, that is the first step. It's the first stage. It's the platform as you individuate from childhood into any kind of an individual. The first platform you have is that one that you develop in meditation, which is just simple and stillness and nothing but nakedness and observation of you and your identity and your space and time without any particular projection, question. It's nothing but stillness and awareness. You can develop through breathing techniques. You can develop it through music, through silence, through etc., 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 etc. But until you are able to delineate and tell the difference between, hey, Russell, I'm here, and blah, 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 versus pure, naked observation and just a naked awareness without judgment, labeling, thinking, until you can make that differentiation, you may not really be able to think clearly at all.
Yeah, I think even if you can just get one real meditation, even if it's not hyper deep, just get into a meditative state once, it'll change your life forever.
It's like imagine me telling you, hey, everything you experience in your ears is a hallucination of your brain. You're deaf.
Yeah.
And you see my mouth moving and you're making up the sound of my voice. And
So in my meditation classes, we have a sheet with like affirmations, but then afterwards we say mindfulness is a concept of watching your thoughts like buses that you do not go on, instead focusing on the mountain of Zen.
so what do you do for yourself in delineating a true, accurate psychic perception from a complete delusional hallucination?
I think.
Is there an experience in your
Well, I will
body?
feel it. I will feel it in my gut.
What does it feel like? How do you tell the difference for yourself?
I think if it aligns with my conscience and my inner voice, and I'll even ask, my inner voice will speak to me, this still small voice within, and it will tell me this doesn't feel right, or it'll tell me I love this feels so amazing, I want more of this.
How about this idea? It's already built in.
Yeah, it's already built
You were
in.
born with it.
Everyone has it, they just have to listen to it. You don't need to develop it, it's just there, and you just gotta listen to it, and it's the still small voice within.
Dare I say an act of faith and trust, almost like a leap of faith.
They say the still small voice within is the voice of God in the Bible, and that it's not in the thunder or the rain or the wind. It's in the still small voice within. I was feeling and talking about the small voice within, and I think like YouTube Music recommended me a song about that.
Yeah.
That's how I know. So I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I heard it from like the Christian perspective, but I was tuning into it just from experience, that like search for the still small voice within.
There's a lot of ways to take the realization and experience of oneness into all kinds of incoherent, unfunctional manifestations. What would you say are the ways that you take this state of oneness that you've experienced in altered states and you bring it down and translate it to your individuality and your ego? And how does that, how has that benefit? In what ways have you experienced that, and how has it benefited?
Well, like when my mom gets upset, I'll use my meditation breath and I'll breathe and I'll say, "Hey, Mom, I think things are getting kind of tense. Is it okay if I go to my room and maybe we could talk about this later?"
What are your first thoughts? What's your initial? Why do you have to breathe through it? What are your initial reactions?
My initial thoughts are, I don't want to say it because it's my mom. So it's just angry, curse words and like F this,
rejection,
F this. Well, yeah.
Division rather than unity.
Normally I'd be like, fuck this, but it's my mom.
And you breathe.
Yeah.
You focus. You breathe, and you adjust to a higher order or a different frequency.
Well, I called my therapist, and he's like, Russell, you're the man. Like, you just forgot you're the man. Like, go to like you're a master meditator. You have all the tools. Go into your room and regulate yourself. Like, you have this. You got this.
So for sure, you are a victim of divisive agendas, and you have proved yourself redeemable even under your own measurement to transcend all the obstacles and aim for a higher order, a higher ideal, a higher function, and something more unifying, pleasurable, holistic, ideal, sound, realistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful. And I've learned that sometimes it's always a better outcome when you wait, sleep on it.
Patience.
I've learned a lot of patience.
So
that's one thing. That's one of the things I've really improved on in the last few years.
So you many years jujitsu, third degree black belt.
Yeah.
You've now completed yoga teacher training.
Yeah.
This is under Hatha.
Hatha, yeah.
Yeah. You completed Tai Chi?
No.
How far are you along with that?
Almost through the Tai Chi sequence.
So what is this, 3 years now?
Tai
2?
Chi?
Yeah.
I'm still learning Tai Chi and Qigong.
And what else is there?
I walked the marathon.
You've done that more than once, or it's just once?
Just once, but I've walked further on my own.
Yeah, the stories you tell me of your training are...
I mean, I did 40 miles according to my Fitbit one day, walking. And then I was, what else? Reiki, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
When I first met you, it felt like babysitting.
Yeah.
And I had to pivot and make space. In my own insistence and through God's insistence to me that I continue opening such a door to you, you have been one, in my experience, my best students and most receptive to what I say and preach. And for years now, I have not felt like you were a student. I mean, I have this same experience with other people. Like with Stevie, for example. When I first met him, I was a noob, and I admired and looked up to him for many years, and then it came to a point where all of that was over, and now I see him as an equal. And for many years, you have proved more equal and have caught up to, in my opinion, me and my level of perception than most people I know and most people I've known most of my life. So I'm extremely proud and really happy and satisfied to share you with the larger world. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing all this with me, and I look forward to elaborating and doing this again.
Thank you.
Yeah, dude. I love you to pieces.
Love you too, man.
Yeah.